Hi everyone, welcome to the Vanko X Project. I am your host Scott Vanko, where I interview leaders and experts making a difference in the world, and through my stories as well. I hope these inspirational episodes and content inspires you to grow in all areas of your life and to help chase your dreams and passions and to live in the true moment of life. Now let's dive in. I have an exciting episode for you guys today. I am so ready to get this going. Today I interviewed Stefanos Sifandos. Stefanos has been immersed in deep men's empowerment work and intimate relationships, merging the best of Eastern and Western methodologies and philosophies to promote balance, sacredness, and power in life and love. Using integrative techniques and methods such as neural empowerment, Stefanos has created programs and models and systems to enhance the quality of your life, your intimate relationships, and in essence bring you closer to your potential. Having worked with elite special forces soldiers, Olympic gold medalists, some of the best fighters, multiple world champions, working with men from all around the world, and leveraging physical challenge, Stefanos has learned much about the male condition. Having also traveled the depths of his own pain, suicidal thoughts, and fears profoundly, he has overcome destructive patterns and has faced multiple ego deaths. By restructuring and reframing his own masculinity and movement through the world as a man relating to himself, women, and his purpose, he has discovered and created methodologies from navigating to often difficult path of contemporary manhood. Through a deeper connection to God, earth, and self, Stefanos realized the power of the human spirit. We often avoid challenge, fear, and pain. However, for the modern man, now more than ever, there are tools for transformation that help us heal universally. And I'm so excited to have him on today, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We dived in on a lot of masculinity and reconstructing our identities and, letting go of the past and embracing the present moment and enjoying what we have around us. We also talked about the physical body and how the way we carry ourselves through physiology and the way of movement, the power of movement. And we talked also a lot about history from Greek mythology to present day manhood and mankind and how times have changed into where we are on our cell phones on a daily basis and we are not in depth with our true selves in our relationships in our lives. And we talk a lot about building relationships and combining our visions together through collaborations in business and through unity and through social media. I hope this episode inspires you to grow, guys. Now let's dive in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Vanko X Project. I have an amazing guest on today, Stefanos Sifandos. He's a huge online coach, mentor, helping males embrace their masculinity through empowering them to find their purpose and live their true identity. Thank you so much for coming on today, man.
Hey, thank you for having me here, brother. It's an honor and a pleasure.
I appreciate it. Tell me a little bit where your journey started and what got you into the whole personal development world at a young age from where you grew up.
Yeah, man, I've had an innate curiosity. And I don't want to say innate, but it was something that was cultivated within me from a very young age. It largely came from my mother. And I just began moving through the world with this deep explorative inquiry. I wanted to explore everything and understand everything and not only understand, but feel it and connect to it. And as a kid, I remember having like a hypersensitivity to things sometimes. I would be just about to fall asleep and I could almost hear a pin drop 30, 40, 50, 90 feet away. And
Right.
it was very strange, difficult to explain. And I would open my eyes and I would look and everything would be magnified. And it was very overwhelming as a kid and I couldn't quite understand, and still today don't. But what some of those experiences and many others did for me was give me this curiosity. And when I couple my childhood, my family environment, which was quite traumatic and volatile and physically abusive and emotionally abusive, I wanted to escape a lot. And so I escaped, as a kid, I escaped either just playing by myself with Lego or watching Disney movies or just going into this fantasy realm.
Right.
And so that really piqued my interest in what was possible, because I'd watch cartoons and I'd watch, Disney movies, and like Peter Pan, for example, kids were flying around. I'm thinking, wow, what could I fly? Do human beings fly?
Right.
How does this actually work? And so that propelled me deeper into understanding the esoteric arts and understanding philosophy and Eastern mysticism and ancient scripture and so forth, and spirituality and what it meant to be connected to the cosmos and what it meant to be human beings. So I started asking these very deep existential questions. And that in part shaped how I moved through the world, combined with my
Right.
upbringing, and it gave me a perception of the world, but it also in part debilitated my connection to myself,
Hmm.
because I grew up in such a fearful environment that in order to protect myself, I had to wear many masks, and so I started losing myself in this sea of I
Your
better be this
identity.
person today. Yeah, I better be this person today, because if I'm not, then my father may get very angry or upset at me or hit me or be violent and so
Right.
forth. And it's easier and it's more palatable to the ego. And I obviously didn't know this then, but it's more palatable to the ego to wear a mask and have that mask shut down or abused or yelled at than it is the authentic self, quote unquote.
Hmm.
And so I just became lost in this sea of who am I in the world?
Right.
So in short, that shaped my curiosity, and then really moving into understanding the human mind and the human condition and social psychology.
Yeah.
I started studying psychology, behavioral science, philosophy from a young age as well, and then studied that at university, and myriad of other mind-body modalities as well. But really, my friend, my biggest learning has come from my personal experiences, my intrapersonal experiences with myself, and my intimate relationships, where honestly they so many didn't go too well. Some went well, aspects of it, but overall they were very challenging because I wasn't there. I wasn't present. I wasn't connected. I was coming from fear. I was living from shadow.
Right.
And when that came to almost an apex point, I realized that I had to do something different. And so I embarked on that journey a number of years ago to go very deep into my own psyche and really go into the layers of the human condition and why we do what we do, who we are, how can we be more connected, more profound, what are my personal values, how do I want to show up as a man in the world, and what does that
Right.
actually mean to me, masculinity, femininity, everything, and in between that and more. And so that's where really I came from.
Okay. Who were your biggest mentors in your life that really embraced who you were as a male and bringing out your masculinity, and others as well as you got older?
That's a great question. The answer from a young age, unfortunately, is no one really brought out that healthy masculinity in me from a young age. As I got older, in saying that, as I got older, I realized what not to be as a man. And so my father was a great example and mentor
Right.
indirectly. My grandfathers were beautiful men as well, really, really beautiful men. And they were quite passive in their demeanor. So they weren't really strong and solid in their healthy masculinity, but they were amazing human beings, compassionate, empathetic, giving men. They were good examples as well. However, not in that solid structure of masculinity of what I would identify with today. As I got older, I was working abroad internationally, and I met a Vaidyan, which is an Ayurvedic master, and spent a lot
Yeah.
of time with him. And he really helped shape my understanding of what it meant to be a man in the world. However, after being a couple of years with him and then leaving him, I quickly reverted back to old habits and patterns when I was immersed then in my familiar environment back in Australia.
Right.
And so as an adult, I mean, I definitely, Swami Rama was one of those mentors, but indirect. I've never met Swami Rama,
Yeah.
of course. And there were other men that weren't in my life physically that I could look up to. Ken Wilber was one of those men as well, as
Okay.
an intellectual. Joseph Campbell, Carl
Yes.
Sagan. But again, in terms of masculinity, very few and far between, man. I had to really carve my own way and then lean on other authors and so forth and other men in the space to understand what can masculinity actually be in the world.
Right. Were there any like books that you read that like really helped you, like any form of like inspiration that gave you that knowledge? Like where did you absorb all that knowledge from?
Yes, Steve Biddulph was one. He wrote The New Manhood. That was an
The,
inspiring book. Yeah, that was an inspiring book. Man, there were so many authors. I've read so many different. For me, Eastern mysticism is it, man. Like for me personally, so I look to the ancient scriptures. I look to Vedanta. I look to the Upanishads. I look to the Vedas. I look to the ancient Greeks, to
right.
Mesopotamia, to the ancient Egyptians. And it's not just about masculinity, but it's about how do we be solid human beings, and what does that actually mean? I look to the Western philosophers like Nietzsche, to the more modern philosophers, Ralph Waldo Emerson, as an example. I'm just giving you some examples, right?
Yeah.
There's many Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, Stoicism has been Stoicism has been really interesting for me in terms of helping me shape my masculinity as well. We look at the concepts of chivalry, which is something that I include. Yeah, something that I include in my programs, and that's from the the dark ages of the 14th, 15th, 16th century. So there's a lot of influences that I've had, man. A lot of influence, and some modern psychologists as well, like Jung, as an example.
Okay. How do you think, like, because I was a Greek mythology minor at Ohio State. I took a lot of Greek mythology classes where I went to school. How do you think the Greeks have shaped our society today? Because I feel like a lot of it is still kind of relatable till today through understanding the history of people who've actually gone through and studied it. What do you compare from males back then to today from history?
Yeah, that's a great question. So firstly, in terms of Greek influence, I believe it's 65 to 75% of our language, of the English language, its etymological roots are based and grounded in Greek, in ancient Greek, as a starting point. So that's going to have a massive influence, philosophically and also geopolitically, socially. How we structure our systems are rooted in Greek democracy, and demokratia, which is where it began in this expression that is today. But it's interesting when you ask me that question around masculinity in men. And so some of the greatest intellectuals of our time, in terms of the ancient Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, all would regularly say that an intellectual mind that has not understood and connected to his physiology and his body, that's not what a man is. And a man that has no intellect and has no critical thought and has no ability to think laterally and feel into the world, but yet is very connected to his body, that's not quite the man either.
Right.
And so whilst these men would sit in symposiums and philosophize all day, they would also place great value on the physical integrity of the body, the physiological integrity of the body, having strength in the body, being grounded and rooted in our body, having capability and capacity.
Right.
So I feel we've lost that in modernity for the large part. I'm talking about, a few of those Olympians or elite athletes that also have doctorates and PhDs and actually have great control and mastery over their body. They're far and few between. I'm talking about the general populace who doesn't make time, have time, or value physical adeptness, being physically adept and carrying physical prowess. But rather they're more concerned with how they look, how we look in the world. Status and titles and how we're perceived by others. We place such importance on that, yet we don't necessarily place importance on the vitality and the health of our organism and our intellectual being. And so I make it a point to be, yes, intellectual in my field, or as broad as I can be. Yes, also connected to my emotional being, so to carry emotional fitness and emotional intelligence and be able to relate to others and myself in a compassionate, cohesive way, in a clear way. And I also make it a point to move my body regularly, every day, to be mobile, to be nimble, to be strong, to be powerful, to be agile, whatever attributes I consider to be healthy physical
state of mind
pointers. Yeah, that's
Tony
a big
Robbins
part of it as
talks
well.
about that
For
in his
sure.
book Awaken the Giant Within. He talks about your states of mind. I follow a lot of his work, and getting up and doing some activities in the morning, whether it's walking or just some push-ups. My boss, she used to tell me when I worked a year ago, I worked at a marketing firm. My boss would tell me, if you raise your hands above like this for
power posturing,
it raises 20% of your testosterone, especially in women as well. And a lot of women don't realize that they do have testosterone in their body.
Of course.
And it really builds your confidence and your physiology, the way you carry yourself.
That's one of the reasons why lifting heavy load overhead is one of those movement patterns, whether it's a boulder or whatever it may be, barbell, a kettlebell, a sandbag, an awkward object. When we're lifting overhead, it's a massive stimulus for testosterone. Massive. It's just like a big compound movement like deadlifts or heavy squats and so forth. But overhead work it's necessary for men. Necessary.
What do you think makes a man then? If all these masculine traits and the titles and generalizations that we put out in society, what do you think makes a real man? Because I had this conversation with my buddy the other day, and I still don't know the answer to it. I think just being yourself, honestly, and loving yourself as a male.
That's a big part of it. That's a big part of it. So there's two considerations. There's what does it mean to be good at being a man, and what does it mean to be a good man? They're two
Right.
separate things. The former is more objective, and the latter is more subjective. And I'll give you examples. There's an author, Jack Donovan, who's a great author in the space of masculinity, in my opinion, anyway.
Right.
And he has something called the 4 tactical virtues. I've added a tactical virtue to that because I think it plays an important role in our evolution as men.
Yeah.
And so these tactical virtues are strength, mastery, courage, honor, and connectedness. I've added connectedness to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so effectively the premise of this is looking at our evolution as men and how we've, I say grown up, right? Grown up over the last few 100,000 years or a couple of million years as humanoids. And when we look at our progress and we look at how we've evolved as men, we've actually evolved in tribe.
Right.
Okay, we've evolved. And if we've ever evolved on our own, our environment has been so dangerous back then, and there was so much unknown, and our brain development wasn't where it was, and we didn't have the technology that we have today to be in. We live, for the large part, most of us, in a very safe environment. So if you're on your own a few 100,000 years ago, 60, 70, 80,000 years ago, you're surely dead. So people figured out pretty quickly that strength in numbers actually applies.
Right.
And so when we look at how men evolve, we look at men, their main functions were hunting. Their main functions were gathering. Their main functions were setting and extending the perimeter of their environment. So having to protect and provide were some of their main functions.
Okay.
That involved them to require a massive amounts of fitness, health, vitality, strength. So when we're looking at strength, being physically adept as a man, it contributes to being a man, because what it also does is it lends itself to specific hormonal production or stimulus in our body. When we're sedentary, we're not getting a lot of that.
Yeah.
When we're not actively pursuing physical endeavor and we're sedentary, we're also allowing our hormonal profile to be dormant, our physiology to not be at peak performance. That's not really what it means to be a man. When we look back from a physiological perspective and even a psychological perspective, what we require.
Yeah.
And we're talking about mastery. Mastery definitely exists in today's world, but it's less and less with our hands. So there's less neurological feedback in a particular way. As we evolve, we were making tools, we were hunting, we were using our hands a lot. I make a point to learn something new. That's really important, and use my hands as much as possible as well in a new way too. That's important. So mastery, as an example, mastery is there as well. Courage. Most people prefer safety.
Be brave.
Yeah, most people prefer safety in contemporary times, right?
Yeah.
Most people don't know what it means to be courageous and vulnerability is part of courage as well, by the way. And that can be a separate conversation, but I won't touch on it now. But the courage to do something that we're fearful of, the courage to step into the unknown. Our ancestors did that continuously. We are where we are today because of the millions and billions of footsteps that were taken before us, venturing into the unknown and into the wilderness. How often do we spend time in nature in our city dwelling lives?
Not much anymore.
Not much
anymore. We're on our phones too much, and not a lot of people eat at the dinner table anymore.
No. Having a digital detox would actually help. And so the honor came, and I'll get to connecting this in a moment because that's something that I've added there. But the honor came in you in context to your tribe. And so if you had a specific skill set, you did your best in that tribe to contribute to that group, whether it was 3 men, 4 men, or a family of people, or a few families together, or 12 men, whatever it was, you contributed to that. If you pulled your weight, so to speak, you were contributing to that, and you were in honor. And you had a level of self-identity in reference to the group and in reference to who you were in that group. And so the honor came from being in integrity, in mastery, courage, and strength. The connectedness piece is that, and so let me go back to honor for a moment, which feeds into connectedness. We very, very few men. I have a private Facebook group for men, which is called The Conscious Man. And there are many men in there. There's about 1,400 men in there. And it's a really active group. And when men come in, they have a questionnaire that they answer. And one of those questionnaires asks them what one of their biggest pain points is right now. So many men answer isolated, feeling alone, don't have anyone to talk to, don't have friends. So many men are coming from this place. And so how can they express honor? How can they How can they be inspired to be better when other healthy men are there challenging them?
Right. No accountability.
There's no accountability. There's no response. There's no need for responsibility, and
Yeah.
men feel alone. So the connectedness piece was you had to be connected as a man 50, 60, 100,000 years ago. We don't need to be today. We've got pornography. We've got television. We can go to a bar and drink on our own, or we can drink with people, but not really be there because we're drinking away our lives because we're not really happy with who we truly are.
That's what happened to me because I had a big issue with alcohol. I've had 2 DUIs in my life, and this is my story why I started the show. And it was my breakthrough. And I realized when I was drinking my identity away, I was drinking my purpose away. And I feel like a lot of males are trying to find that purpose, but they self-doubt themselves based on the circumstances and trauma they brought in their life by the choices they make.
Yep.
Because we have all these things, but you don't have to have the choice to go to the bar. You can choose not to drink. You can choose, not to go eat there, wherever that is you choose. You always have that decision to have that power in your life.
Yep. Yeah, we all do have that choice. And when you have a band of brothers that you're connected to, because we were all connected, you have an accountability. Right. And you can choose who do you want to align with in greatest alignment with your values. And so part of that's something that, back to your question earlier around men in today's world, we at some level, we used to be highly self-aware and highly observant of who we were. We don't have that today. People don't take a few minutes at the end of their day to reflect on, who was I? How did I behave? That argument that I had, could I have shown up differently? Did I do my best today? Did I put my front foot forward today? Was I in alignment with my actions? Were they in alignment with my purpose? What is my purpose? What are my values? Have I treated myself fairly today? Have I treated others fairly today? People don't go through that self-analysis. And so we're disconnected from self and we don't really know who we are.
Right. We're not like waking up in the morning because like every morning I wake up, I have a gratitude journal I write down 3 times a day next to my bed, and it gets my state of mind going to keep me grounded with my identity. But at the same time, I always have that struggle throughout the day. Like, what am I doing this for? Like, I haven't gotten the results I wanted. I do have these thoughts sometimes because, this podcast has been a struggle for me. I almost thought about quitting the show because I just, was having a hard time getting interviews, and I was just doubting myself in that mindset every day. I couldn't, get out of it. But the only way to get out of it is like to sit in a room by yourself and really look at your life. Nobody's there. And really write down what you want.
Yeah, bro. Brother, and I'll say something on that. And I really admire you for speaking that out loud in a public forum, and B, being persistent. And I just ask you to continue to be consistent.
Right.
And be persistent because you ask great questions. You create a beautiful environment. It's an intriguing environment. Man, I've done hundreds of these things. This is a great conversation that I feel we're having right now.
Right.
And sometimes, this is our path as men. This is where short-term gratification, we live in a world of short-term gratification. It's easy to quit. It's easy to say, another time. I'll do this another time. That's easy. I'll pick it up in a year when I've got more of an audience or greater reach. Or no. Right now, you want this? Go for it. Move through the challenge. Learn from it. Meet the perceived failure with an openness. How can I learn and grow from this? How can I keep going? How can I be more concerned about the quality of what I'm being and doing, as opposed to being attached to having to have X amount of reviews or having to have a waiting list of interviewees and so forth.
Yeah.
Forget about all that, man. Work through the challenge. That's another thing we don't do enough of in today's society as men. We don't challenge ourselves. We look for the easy way. We look for short-term gratification. And there's something to be said about delaying gratification, man, in terms of what it does to our mindset, what it does to our bodies, and what it does to our character. And lots of studies have been done on that.
We forget that character a lot, and I think building the character is the biggest thing to start doing first. Back to the whole gratitude thing, with those little daily habits, because I feel like a lot of people don't have daily habits, and they're not implementing any system in your life, in their lives. Because I know you have built these courses and systems. How have these systems helped your clients and your business, and the Olympic medalists you've helped out to CEOs, entrepreneurs, because you've really helped out a lot of people. How are those systems really changed their business and their lives?
Basically, in short, it gets them in integrity and in alignment. And instead of living a facade, they're living a life of truth.
Right.
One of the issues today, particularly for men are very good at lying. And
Yeah.
this is a human thing. It's not just men, but we're talking about men right now. So, men particular are really good at lying and really good at actually hiding themselves behind their lies. That's an unpleasant, an undesirable state to be. No one wants to live in that. It's just perpetuated because of habit and routine around the lies. But we don't want that. No one ever, there is such great relief in telling the truth. And so, again, in short, to answer your question directly, freedom and liberation. People feel free. They feel liberated that they can be themselves and are not concerned or attached to the judgment of others and how the judgment others place on them. And so, therefore, there's a lesser concern about how others perceive them,
Mm-hmm.
and more of a focus on, am I showing up in integrity within my own self?
Right. What has been your biggest fears in your life that have held back from your integrity sometimes? Because sometimes, I'm not saying we're all perfect. We have our issues day to day.
Yeah.
Like, are there some
Being,
days where you just feel like you're not honest with yourself and you're like, what am I doing?
yeah, 100%. Even, like, I think I'm trying to think of a perfect example. I was in I'm in a mastermind. Before I go there, let me answer your question in a different way, or let me underpin that first, because the original question is what were some of the, anyway, I'll go into fear. So fear of being seen,
Right.
fear of being judged, fear of being ostracized. I've had these in my life, very visceral, and it's caused me to mask myself and mask my actions and adhere to the status quo and minimize myself and maximize the needs of others instead of me. And then because I've needed it to express my value still, I've done it in a shadow way. So
Right.
I've been completely dishonest. And that's been a very tumultuous experience for me. But to something more recent, I'm in a mastermind. His name is Chris Harder, and he's a good friend of mine. And it's an epic mastermind, man. There's so many amazing people in this mastermind. We meet 3 times a year. We connect in person. We connect every month via Zoom. And it's an elite mastermind. And I get there and there's just epic people doing epic things, and I'm doing epic things in my own way as well. But then that old self creeps in.
Yeah.
That old self of, man, am I good enough? Do I belong here? I mean, these guys are making way more money than me. They're doing bigger things. They seem to be taking on more. Am I taking on enough? I shall be doing more. And the shoulds come in, and the shoulds. And I just breathe into that. And I say to myself, hold on, my journey is different. My path is different. What I've experienced is different.
Yeah.
The work that I've done, very few people have gone into those trenches that I've gone into.
Right.
And I've spent many years articulating that so I can be the man that I am today. And so I place great value on that. And when it comes to, in this instance, because we're talking about financial acumen and abundance in that sense, man, I'm really, really building that. I'm rebuilding that because I tore myself down purposely to reconstruct myself. So I'm in a different life stage. And so I remind myself of those things and breathe into that and stop comparing as well. Right. And just be me and just be grateful and happy that I deserve to be in this room because I'm here. And it's not just about, you can't just pay to be in the room. It's more than that. Yeah, there's an interview process that takes place. And so I, quote unquote, pass that interview process is a reason why I'm there. And seeing our value beyond just the superficial, beyond the prima facie is very, very important. Beyond the surface level. Because we forget the value that we bring as human beings to our relationships.
What is the biggest benefits of being part of a mastermind? I know I understand the connecting and the accountability, but what's been your favorite part of it? Being part of Chris Harder's.
Outside the connection and the accountability as well is the ideation, is the idea creation that takes place, man.
Right.
And the support. So beyond accountability, it's support. I mean, I can go into that mastermind group and say, hey, I need this, guys, which I do often and everyone else does. And everyone just rushes to you. Okay, what do you need? How can I help you? And these are people that are really busy, man. I mean, they got stuff on. They're running multiple 7-figure businesses. This isn't a light thing, and they've got families and kiddies and travel and all of that, but they're all, and so that's one of the biggest things. And he curates that. He really curates the people that come in and how we support each other. It's an amazing experience.
That's great. Yeah, because it's kind of like the Think and Grow Rich mindset. I don't know if you've read that book.
I have,
I love it. I have the original version, actually. It talks about the
awesome.
minds. Our masterminds, they're basically just like you come together like the greatest experts in their fields, and they share basically their ideologies on life and business.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And I think that the support part, we can't undervalue that, because who you surround yourself with, you become.
Right. I
And
do agree with
so,
that.
yeah, and it also, not only who you surround yourself with, but your intention
Right.
behind who you surround yourself with. The awareness around that's very important as well.
That's funny you bring that up, intention. I don't know if you follow Oprah at all, but every meeting that she has with any business people, I was listening to a podcast. Somebody was saying, I forget which one, if I'm quoting this wrong. She says that every meeting that she has with her business partners, she goes, "What's your intention today?" And a lot of people don't ask that when they, are in business or sales. They just come in and just try to sell things to people. And they're like, "What is your intention? Like, why are
Yep.
you here? What's your why?"
Yep. Even if it's just for that meeting, it doesn't have to be for your whole life, but even just for that interaction. What is your
Right.
intention for being here? Like my intention to be here with you, as an example, is to have an epic conversation with another epic human being, number one.
Right. I
Number
appreciate
two,
it.
yeah, thank you. And number two is to bring a message of what can masculinity look like in the world, and to cease to give masculinity a bad rap, because without men, we're nothing. And without women, we're nothing. And so can we blend and merge the two? And how do we do that from a place of difference and celebrating that, and a place of sameness, and celebrating that as well, and then spreading that message and giving that to the world? And so that's my intention here. And my intention also, I set a target for myself to be on X amount of podcasts by December 30th or December 31st. How many days in December? 31. I think.
Yeah, my birthday's in December. I'm a Sagittarius.
There you go. Awesome. So yeah, by December 31, I've well exceeded that. And so really coming further into just being, again, epic conversations, epic people.
Right. That's what I love about podcasting. This is just a little bit about me. Like, it's a great marketing tool, but it's such a accessibility and that power that you can get out to people. Because nowadays we're just so on our phones and listening. We're not like, I'm not saying a lot of people don't read blogs or read a lot of books. I'm just saying it's more accessible, and it's such a great way to get a message out there and to hear everybody's stories. Because I grew up listening to my grandma's stories when she came to this country. I'm Hungarian, so my grandma came here with nothing from Budapest, and she would talk to churches about how she came here with nothing, and how people, back in the day helped each other. I don't feel like a lot of people are helping anybody anymore. Like, they're just kind of walking around, like we talked about earlier, your selfish mindset. So how do you break out of a selfish mindset? Like, that's the thing. Because, like, if we're so involved with what we want to do in social media and that gratification, how do we get out of that?
There's two ways I see. One is a preventative and / curative, and the other is preventative and curative as well. So the first is developing a new belief system around needing to be selfish. We don't need to be selfish. We need to understand that we're pro-social beings, and we've actually evolved that way. Right. It's in our DNA. It's in our culture. It's in our social constructs. We're pro-social beings. Yes, there's intrinsic competition embedded in everything that we do. It's how we relate to the competition, which is what we need to change. And we have to understand that we do far better with collaboration than we do with
law of reciprocity.
Competition. Yes. Number one. So really embracing that and understand, being aware, being educated in that. And number two is go do something nice for someone. Go give your time, your energy, your resources to someone. I'm just talking about writing a check to a foundation, which is nothing wrong with that, by the way. Yeah. But I'm speaking to literally help someone. Go help your grandmother. Go volunteer at a nursing home. Feed the homeless. Help your brother out or a friend out if they need an ear to listen. Just actively, with intention, deliberate intention, give. And do that regularly, and you will see yourself and feel yourself moving out of fear and hyper-selfishness into more of a balance of giving and receiving as well. And you won't have this fear that's attached to, I need to do more for myself because I'm scared that I won't get this and I won't achieve that and I won't be seen like this and I'll be alone. And we're just pushing ourselves away more and more.
Right. And that's what I love about your work, is you really dive deep on like identity, obviously, in males and purpose, but like it's like you like draw it out from you when you talk. It's like your communication. You have such a way of like talking about how we push ourselves away from each other and our own purpose and our identity. Did you get involved in any communication groups growing up? Like, how did you develop these skills of speaking? Like, because you have a gift for it.
Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate that compliment. No, I haven't. I haven't. I've just been me, and I've just practiced, and I haven't joined any communication groups in any capacity besides university and the odd, and speaking in front of people and
Yeah.
speaking on stage. But again, I deliberately place myself in that. I haven't had any formal training. I think and feel I need some formal training. I think that'll be very beneficial for
Right.
me to be able to articulate a message with greater cohesion. I just speak from my heart, man, and I really believe in what I'm speaking to, and I'm also very open to, okay, this is my ideology. Yeah, I'm open for that to evolve, and I'm open for
Yeah.
that to shift and transform. Provide me with a really strong, believable reason as to why, or reasons, and let's deep dive into that and evolve these ideas. And so I just come from that place. I just come from, and I think a lot of it
Authenticity.
also, yeah, I think a lot of it also came from being repressed as a kid. And then, our voids become our values. Dr. John DeMartini says that often.
Okay.
Our voids become our values.
I'll have to check him out.
John DeMartini, you love him, man.
Dr. John.
DeMartini, yeah, he's epic. Old school. He's
Old
old
school.
school.
I'll have to check that out. I follow Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you follow him at all
Of course,
too.
amazing. I would be going to his level 1, 2, 3 in, I think it's in Arizona, in September, but I can't because my fiance and I are teaching in Hawaii. We have a retreat that's nearly booked. There's a couple of spots left, like a 40-person retreat, and then we're
Oh,
going to Greece for our wedding as well. So
so you do
I can't
adventure
make that.
retreats and stuff for people.
We do, yeah, I do as well. Last year I was in the New Zealand Alps. I took a few people up there in
That's,
altitude. Epic.
what's that experience like climbing a mountain with other people and helping them attain
Yeah,
their goals?
personal growth in the mountains, man. It's an amazing experience, and the parallels drawn between what the mountain can teach us, or what nature can teach us,
Right.
and what's actually unraveling within our own psyche, mindset, and intrapersonal and interpersonal self is phenomenal.
Right. That's good. Is there any new projects besides all that you're
Yeah.
so passionate about right now that you can give out and talk about?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Reclaim Your Kingdom. So Reclaim Your Kingdom commences July 17th. It's an
Okay.
8-week immersive online program just for men. And it's groundbreaking, man. I'm so excited about this. I've been doing Reclaim Your Kingdom for a couple of years. This is just a new iteration of it.
Right.
And I'm just super excited to be involved in this. And obviously, I'm the founder and I'm the creator of it, but I'm super excited to be giving this to the world and to men. So we kick off July 17th.
Wow.
Men are already joining up. It's just an amazing experience for helping men identify their own sense of self in the world,
Yeah.
connect to their own sense of masculinity, define that for themselves, and they're given 8 principles of what it means to be a healthy man in contemporary times.
Right. And really embracing who they are.
Yeah.
What advice could you give to any entrepreneurs or influencers out there? Because you're a busy guy, you're doing a lot of things, and really found a way to reconstruct yourself, from, growing up and building a new version of yourself. What advice could you give to somebody out there who's trying to start a message or a vision of their business? Where should they start?
There's 2 things I would say. The first is willingness, and let me elaborate on that. Be willing to go where other people can't and won't. Be willing to traverse the unknown, because there's so much gold in the mystery, in silence and stillness and solitude. And that's where most people don't want to go. So be willing to go there, to find your answers, to connect to your truth and to your power.
Right.
That's number 1. Really, really be willing. And number 2, practice honoring yourself. Practice really acknowledging your gifts and your skills, and acknowledge your accolades, acknowledge what you have accomplished, and acknowledge what you are accomplishing and being and doing in the world. Because when we do that, we fortify the wisdom of that experience through the acknowledgement. And then the universe, higher self, God, divine, the cosmos, whatever you want to call it, our own hard work gives us more, because we can take on more. Because if we can't acknowledge it, it's not in our sphere of reality. That's what I would say to that.
Right. This is a question I ask in my interviews. It's like my little forte question I go to.
Yeah.
What is the legacy that you want to leave behind, one day when you're gone, and, you left all your work and impact in the world for everybody to be inspired by, to help, move and have others learn from what you taught them?
It's a great question, brother. The first way I'm going to answer that is now. So my legacy is now, is who I am now, how I show up now. My legacy, for me, I define legacy in 2 ways. primarily what we do in the present moment, how we live our lives. And yes, then that lends itself to when we pass, when the physical body perishes, what can we be remembered for?
Right.
Or what can we be acknowledged for or appreciated for? But for me, it's a now thing. Do it now. And then to answer that question directly is to be known for he's the guy that went where others wouldn't go. And to have a really healthy, positive impact at a global, at a socio-cultural, geopolitical, socioeconomic level, geo-environmental, and individual level, of course, as well.
Right.
But I'm just to be known for that guy that just goes where others don't. And it's not a comparison thing. It's an integrity thing for me. It's an integrity thing that I really believe with all that I am, that there's so much wisdom in the unknown, in the places that are really difficult to traverse and go into. And there's so much wisdom in pain and fear, just as there is in joy and celebration. There's so much wisdom in the unknown, and I love spending time there. As uncomfortable as it is, I continuously expose myself to those places. Whether it's a behavior like, hey, someone says, hey, Steph, I noticed that you're really reactive when we talk about racism in Australia. And I'm like, okay, well, let me explore that within myself. That's an unknown thing for me. Let me go, because I get, the Indigenous people of Australia as an example. I use that as a real example. They've been so hard done by our modern culture, our contemporary culture. And it's all systemic racism essentially, and what it's grounded in. So that's something that really grinds me. And so how can I respond to that as opposed to react and be more adept, as opposed to being stunted by my own aggression or anger or sympathy or whatever it is, empathy and compassion, which is nothing wrong with that. But how can I come from a more empowered place? And so for me, that would require me going into the unknown aspects of myself to be different. Because I have to do something different to be different in the world. That means I have to explore something different. That means different can be very much unknown and the mystery. So can I plunge into the mystery?
Well, Stefanos, man, you have a real good way of putting things in, beautiful words and sayings, and a message for people out there to really live by and to help embrace their purpose and their masculinity. And this goes out to anybody out there, really trying to chase things they love, or really build that business they always wanted to start, or just, live day to day and really love themselves for who they are. Where can everybody find you on social media?
Thank you. Stefanos Stefandos for my social media handles, and my website, stefanosstefandos.com or reclaimyourkingdom.com.
Heck yeah. I appreciate you coming on today, and you just blew me away. So I'm just like, wow, it's really awesome. But
thank you, brother.
I look forward to collaborating with you more in the future. You can listen to my interview I had with Johnny Alsasser. He's a great dude. He's a
good man. He's a really good man. Yeah.
Told me to check out your stuff, and I love your work. So, but is there anything else that you can talk about that's coming out, but can't really give a lot of details on?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. Myself and my fiance, we have that retreat that's coming up in September. Yeah. There's a couple of spots left. So christinehassler.com/Hawaii. It's in Hawaii. That's epic. And then her and I are also running a one-day event in August in LA, October in London, and November in San Diego as well. And that's for all men, women, couples, etc. But it's all about how do we connect to self in the most profound way.
Right. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on the Vanko X Project today, man, and thank you for your time. And I wish you the best of luck in your journey in helping men and everyone embrace their true identity and purpose.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate being here.
You too. Wow, what a great episode, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. I hope this episode today inspired you to take leadership in your life and to reconstruct your identity or embrace your identity and to become the best version of yourself, to build relationships, to spread love, to spread gratitude. This goes out to everybody out there in your life. If you're struggling or dealing with any kind of circumstance, don't let that hold you back. You always have the choice and the decision to change your life. This has been my mission to inspire people for the past 2 years. It's not been an easy journey, and it's not over. It's just the beginning. And I want you all to know that you can always start over and change your chapter in your story. You are the author of your story. And Stefanos talks a lot about that in his content, and he's been such a huge inspiration to me and mentor today. And You guys can follow me at Scott Vanko 27, where you can find me on IG and also on Facebook, Scotty Vanko. I just created a new private group page. If you DM me, I will add you into the group and create a community together. We can't get by ourselves in this world alone. We have to contribute and to give back. So you guys go out there and make the biggest impact in your life today, this week, this month, this year. I want you guys to dominate in all areas of your life, and I truly mean that. I wish you all the best of luck, and I have great episodes coming out this month for you. And thank you so much for supporting this podcast. It means the world to me. Please write a review for me on iTunes and tell me how this podcast has inspired you to grow. And please share this episode in your story on Instagram. And if you share it, I will do a weekly live with you. Thank you so much, everybody, and go out and make a difference.